You're not furniture, but if you can't move on your own, you may as well be. Those were her exact words. My daughter-in-law said them while standing over me, fresh out of the hospital, still groggy from anesthesia. She was holding my walker, the very thing I needed to stand, and she tossed it into a black trash bag like it was a cracked umbrella. I remember blinking up at her from the couch I had been gently lowered onto by the paramedics. And then she added with a smile so dry it hurt, "We don't keep broken things around here." I had survived emergency spinal surgery. I was still in pain. I was still swollen. But nothing compared to the shock I felt when she said that. "Hi, my name is Elaine. I am 73 years old. I gave birth to one child, Aaron. I raised him with my hands and heart after my husband died young. I worked in a school library for over 30 years, lived in the same house all that time, paid every bill, and helped pay for my son's wedding. And now I was back in that same house, but as a ghost. If you've ever witnessed a woman being pushed out of her own family, stay with me until the end. And please leave a comment with your city name if you've ever seen someone treated like this in your neighborhood. And if you think people like me deserve to be seen and heard, again subscribe. There's more to this story than you can imagine. Let me take you back. My son and his wife Tricia moved in after the pandemic. Aaron had lost his job, and I said, of course, come stay while things stabilize. At the time, it felt good to have family around again. I cooked for them, let them use the larger bedroom, even let Tricia convert my sewing room into a makeshift office. I told myself it was just temporary. Then 2 years passed. Tricia built an online health coaching business. Aaron began doing remote IT work. They stopped saying thank you. One day I was helping put away groceries when my legs gave out underneath me. It was sudden. I didn't even feel dizzy, just gone. When I came to the doctor told me I had a pinched nerve that required immediate surgery. I was frightened not of the procedure, but of becoming a burden. When I came home from the hospital 3 days later, I expected a warm blanket, a soft chair, maybe soup. What I got was a trash bag. "You don't need this thing," Tricia said as she tossed the walker. "You're going to walk. You're strong. You're not going to become one of those women who watches TV in the dark and complains about her hips." I blinked at her. My back burned like fire. "That's for my recovery," I said. "Mind over matter." She shrugged. "We don't reward weakness in this house." This house? The same house I'd paid off brick by brick. I tried to laugh, thinking she was joking, but her eyes didn't match her tone. She genuinely believed what she was saying. And worse, Aaron stood behind her silent. He said nothing. That silence would become the most defining sound of this whole chapter of my life. I was sent to the guest bedroom, the smallest one with the daybed and no TV. They moved my personal items into plastic bins. Tricia told me less clutter means faster healing. She gave me a nutrition plan. No salt, no dairy, no hot drinks after 7 p.m. "I'm your coach now," she said, winking. "Let's not mess up all that surgical effort." The next morning, I found her sitting at the kitchen island with a podcast mic. Today's episode, she spoke into the mic, is about boundaries and how to prevent toxic relatives from turning your home into a hospice. I stood in the hallway, frozen. I didn't even breathe. Was I the hospice? She had followers. She had a platform. She had a script. I had bruises under my surgical tape and a heating pad that no longer worked because someone had unplugged it to charge their phone. I used the wall to steady myself and walked to the kitchen. I needed my walker, or at least a cane. "Where did you put it?" I asked. Tricia paused her recording. "Elaine, I threw it away. I told you yesterday. That walker was recommended by my doctor. I told you," she said, voice sharper now, "that we don't keep broken things around here. We fix them or let them go." What would you have said? How do you even respond when someone tells you your weakness is unwelcome in your own home? I was still trying to make sense of her cruelty when I noticed something stranger. All the doorknobs had been replaced with round, slick metal ones, difficult for people with hand tremors. My old non-slip mat was gone from the bathroom. My pills had been put into unmarked boxes labeled Trisha's routine. My bedroom window lock had been changed. It wasn't just a change in attitude, it was a redesign of my entire environment. And yet, the moment I tried to speak to Aaron about it, he said, "Mum, you're just disoriented. Give it time." Disoriented. I remember looking at my own reflection in the bathroom mirror that night. I tilted my head, studying myself. Was I disoriented? Or was this the beginning of something else? I tried calling my friend Martha, but my phone charger was missing. I checked my bedside drawer. My backup one was gone too. When I asked about it, Trisha said, "You need to sleep more anyway. Screens are bad for your nervous system." That night, the hallway light stayed off. I had to shuffle in darkness to the bathroom. The next morning, I slipped. Not badly, but enough that I cried out in pain. My lower back flared. No one came. Not Aaron, not Trisha. Eventually, I pulled myself back to bed. My palms were scraped, knees bruised, and my trust that had been shattered entirely. That night, I heard Trisha again, this time whispering into her phone. I couldn't make out the words, but one line stood out. "She's fading. I don't think she's even aware how far gone she is." I froze. My mind raced. Was this all intentional? I'd like to ask you something now. And I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Have you ever seen someone slowly stripped of power? One decision at a time, all under the disguise of care. Please share your thoughts in the comments. There are others reading who might be going through the same thing and need to know they're not alone. I thought that would be the worst of it. I was wrong, because the very next day I heard her voice through the thin walls rehearsing something with Aaron. "I think it's time we talk about getting her assessed," she said, for her own good. Mentally. But what I didn't know yet was that they already had an appointment booked, behind my back. 3 days passed, then a week, then 2. And somehow I became a background object in my own home. At first, I told myself it was the painkillers, that I was exaggerating. But every morning I woke up and something else had changed, and not just changed, but changed in a way that made my presence smaller. The hallway lights had been placed on a motion sensor, but it only activated from Trisha's phone. My old chair in the living room, the one with my embroidery kit in the side pocket, was now covered in boxes marked storage. When I tried to sit there, Trisha walked in and said, "Oh, sorry, we're organizing the space. You can watch TV in your room if you want." But my TV was gone. In its place was a framed sign that read, "Stillness is power." My heating pad replaced. My slippers donated. The photos of my late husband that used to line the hallway had been swapped for framed inspirational quotes. "Energy is a choice. You are not your body. Release what doesn't serve you." I asked Aaron gently what was going on. He didn't look up from his laptop. "Trish is just updating the house, Mom." "It's not personal." "Not personal." I tried making tea one afternoon. The electric kettle was gone. I asked about it. "Caffeine increases inflammation," Trisha said. "We're off it now." I asked. "You too. Trust me, I've been doing the research." That night, I went to look for my wool coat. I was cold. It was winter. But when I opened the hallway closet, it wasn't there. None of my clothes were. I found them folded into 2 vacuum-sealed bags labeled "To sort Elaine." I brought it up over dinner. "Why did you pack up my closet?" Trisha smiled while chewing. "To make space for the baby's things." I froze. "The baby." She looked up. "Didn't Aaron tell you?" Aaron kept chewing, slowly, still not looking at me. "We're expecting," she said. I felt my fork pause mid-air. "I know. Congratulations. That's wonderful. But I'm sorry, where will the baby stay?" "We're turning your room into a nursery," she said brightly. "You'll move downstairs. That way you won't have to climb stairs while you're still healing." Win-win. But the downstairs room has no windows, no heat. "We'll get you a blanket," she said. "Besides, you don't need much light down there. It's cozy. Very grounding." Grounding, like being buried underground. That night, I went to brush my teeth and realized my toothpaste had been replaced with a herbal charcoal blend. The label read, Gut First Protocol Phase 1. My medications were no longer in my pillbox. They had been repackaged into tiny glass jars with colored lids. No labels, no instructions. I panicked. I asked Erin again, why is she repackaging my medicine? She's trying to help. You know how into health she is. But that's not how prescriptions work. What if I mix something up? She means well, Mom. Just don't fight her. It stresses her out. That's not good for the baby. I realized then Trisha had a fortress, and Erin was one of the walls. The next day, I found my medical mail opened on the counter. One envelope had a note written in pink pen, already submitted for you, XO, T. Submitted what? I began keeping notes in my crossword puzzle book. It was the only thing she hadn't touched. Jan 4. Bedroom switch announced. No choice offered. Jan 7. Meds repackaged. No explanation. Jan 8. Found will file folder open. Unsure who accessed. And then the big one. Jan 10. Phone call overheard Trisha saying, if she resists, we have the power of environment. Power of environment. Was I being reprogrammed? Everything she did was disguised as care, but it was erasure. I was being edited out of my own life. I began sitting by the window in the laundry room, the only room she hadn't curated. There, I watched the neighbor across the street walk her dog, kiss her grandchildren, carry groceries. I realized how much of my own life had become reaction instead of action. One morning, I asked if I could visit the senior center to see my friends. Trisha smiled. Only if you take the brain health supplements I left on your tray. Those aren't prescribed, I said. Well, neither was your full, she replied. Have you ever watched someone try to gain control over another person? Not through force, but by slowly taking away every option they have to exist independently. Bit by bit, invisibly. What do you think, is this still care, or is it something else entirely? Please leave a comment. I want to know how you'd define it. The next morning, I woke to find my room rearranged. My nightstand was gone. My alarm clock too. In its place, a white noise machine. Trisha poked her head in. Helps with agitation. Erin and I read an article about managing elderly tension. Elderly? That was the first time she said it out loud. But what I didn't know then was that this was just the prelude to something even colder, something that involved more than just the furniture, something with papers and signatures. It started subtly. The mail stopped coming to my name. When I asked, Trisha said, "Oh, everything's going digital now. Less paper, better for the environment?" But when I checked my email, my account was locked. The recovery number had been changed. My phone charger disappeared. Again. The basement where I now lived didn't get cell signal. When I asked for the house Wi-Fi password, she said they had changed it for security reasons. Aaron mumbled something about resetting the router and never followed through. When I tried to visit the upstairs kitchen during the afternoon, I found a note on the door. Please rest. Baby needs calm energy in the house. I wasn't even allowed in the main living space unless invited. Trisha called it my resting retreat. She even printed out a sign and stuck it on the basement door, Elaine's tranquility zone. What it really meant was stay downstairs, stay quiet, stay forgotten. I tried knocking on neighbors' doors during one of my walks, but no one answered. And then I found out why Trisha had posted in the neighborhood Facebook group that I was adjusting post-op and needed lots of quiet time, limited stimulation, and no visitors for a few weeks. She controlled the narrative before I even knew there was one. Aaron still said little. He'd stop by with a bowl of soup or a bottle of supplements and leave quickly. He didn't ask questions. He didn't sit. He didn't see. The worst moment came one Sunday. I had made it upstairs early before they woke, hoping for coffee and just a sense of normalcy. The moment Trisha saw me at the table, she froze, then smiled. You're up early? I nodded. Just needed to feel human again. She tilted her head. Have you taken your memory blend yet? I don't need it. She didn't blink. You were confused last week. You forgot where your room was. I was tired. It was dark. She reached over, placed a hand on mine. Cold light calculated. It's okay to struggle. That's why we're here. To help. I looked down. She had slid a pill container beside me. New colors. No labels. Help! The word rang in my ears like a bell at a funeral. Later that day, Aaron asked gently, Mom, if you're feeling confused, maybe we should have someone come evaluate you. I stared at him. Evaluate me? Just to make sure everything's okay. We don't want things to get worse. Worse than what? He didn't answer. Have you ever been made to question your own mind? Not because it's failing, but because someone else is trying to rewrite what you remember, what you said, what you know. If you've ever had someone use concern as a way to corner you, I hope you'll share your story below. Not just for me, for anyone reading who might be doubting their own reality. I began staying quiet during meals. I kept my head down. Every time I opened my mouth, Tricia would nod slowly, like she was observing something clinical. I overheard her on another podcast recording. Sometimes the elderly act out because their world is shrinking. It's not personal. It's neurological. I still had my crossword book. I still had my notes. But I had no visitors, no mail, no keys, no say in what I ate when I left or what medications I took. I was alive but isolated completely. One evening, I heard them laughing upstairs. A game night. They hadn't told me. My favorite cookies were on the table. A candle was burning. I watched from the shadows of the stairwell, realizing they were rehearsing life without me already. But the moment that broke me wasn't the game night, or the blocked calls, or the locked kitchen. It was the day I heard my granddaughter, barely 4, ask Tricia, "Why doesn't Grandma talk to us anymore?" And Tricia replied, "Because she's very tired now, sweetie. Sometimes when people get older, their words get all jumbled up. It's best to let them rest." I wasn't tired. I was silenced. But one afternoon, while folding laundry in the dark basement, I found something wedged between the old boxes of Christmas lights, a dusty photo album. Inside was a receipt dated 2 weeks ago for a private geriatric facility intake consultation. My name, my birthday, Tricia's signature. They were planning to move me, without a word, and they hadn't even told me. But I wasn't gone yet, and I wasn't as alone as they thought, because someone had left a handwritten note tucked behind that receipt, and it wasn't Tricia's handwriting. The note was folded into fourths, tucked behind the intake receipt in the old photo album. It was written in blue ink on ruled paper. "This wasn't your idea. You deserve to know what they've planned. A friend." There was no name, no date, just that sentence scrawled like a whispered warning. I stared at it for minutes, trying to place the handwriting. It wasn't Aaron's. It wasn't Tricia's. It was deliberate, steady. Someone who knew how to hide a message without triggering suspicion. I tucked it into my bra, the one place Tricia never dared to invade, and sat back on the cot, heart racing. Later that night, while brushing my hair, I noticed that the small camera dot on the basement smoke detector was glowing faintly red. I froze, leaned forward. A camera. Had it always been there? I remembered how Tricia always knew when I was awake. When I opened the fridge. When I tried to leave early in the morning. She wasn't guessing. She was watching. The next morning, a nurse rang the front bell. I heard her voice clearly through the vent above my basement stairs. "Hi, I'm Cheryl. I'm here for Elaine's initial evaluation. I was told she's showing signs of cognitive slippage and might need transitional support." Transitional support. My chest went tight. I scrambled upstairs, even though my legs ached. Tricia met me at the top, eyes wide. "You shouldn't be climbing stairs without permission." "Is that a nurse?" I asked. "Just a consultation. Nothing serious. It's standard. You seemed disoriented last week." "I wasn't. You called your granddaughter by the wrong name." I said Lila instead of Lily. Once. My sister's name was Lila. The nurse stepped into view, then holding a clipboard. I was told this would be a private appointment. I didn't schedule it, I said. The nurse looked at Tricia. You're not the patient's medical guardian, are you? Tricia smiled. No, but I'm the primary caregiver, and Aaron, her son, has granted me authorization to coordinate care. I interrupted. Where is Aaron? At work, she answered quickly. I'd like to speak with him. Alone. The nurse hesitated. We can reschedule if this is unexpected. No, Tricia said sharply. She forgets things when we delay. I looked the nurse straight in the eyes. Would you please follow me? Just a few steps. I have something to show you. I led her into the laundry room, the only space not sanitized by Tricia's quotes and herbal blends. I pulled out the envelope from my bra and handed her the receipt. Then the note. She read, both her brow furrowing. This isn't consent, I whispered. This is manipulation. I'm being pushed out. She looked up at me slowly. This isn't what I was told. They said you were delusional, that you insisted your dead husband still lived here. I blinked. What? She frowned. They told me you sometimes wonder that you think it's the 90s. My husband passed in 2001. I've lived here ever since. I can tell you the names of every neighbor on this block. I believe you, she said quietly, but you need help. Real help. Then help me. Before she left, she handed me a small yellow sticky note with her number. This isn't protocol, she whispered. But I'll follow up. I hid the note behind the light switch panel in my room. That afternoon, Tricia stormed down to the basement. What did you tell her? I told her the truth. I was trying to prevent you from going somewhere worse. Worse than this. She crossed her arms. Aaron's going to be furious. He can speak to me himself. Her voice went cold. You know what? Maybe it's time we make the move official. I've already spoken with the estate planner. The what? The house is technically joint held now. Aaron put your name on a survivorship clause, which means you're not the sole owner anymore. I felt something cold crawl down my back. She paused, then added with an icy smile, unless you'd like to contest it. But that might raise questions about your mental clarity. She was baiting me. I didn't take it. Instead, I waited. And later that night, when she was recording her podcast in the home office, I turned on the white noise machine she'd left in my room. I unscrewed the back and found a SIM card tucked inside. It wasn't a white noise machine. It was a listening device. They weren't just watching me. They were recording me. Can I ask you something? What would you do if someone used care as camouflage, but you discovered their entire plan was built to erase you, not to hurt you outright, but to replace you systematically with silence? Leave a comment, not just for me, for anyone who's ever felt like they were being rewritten. The next morning, someone knocked at the door while Tricia was at a prenatal appointment. It was the mail carrier. I have a package for Elaine, direct signature required. I signed. The box was from a law firm. I tore it open. Inside was a copy of a real estate transfer agreement. My name had been digitally signed. But the shock wasn't just the forgery. It was the cover letter. The person who had submitted the paperwork wasn't Tricia. It was Aaron. But he hadn't submitted it alone. He had co-signed with someone I hadn't spoken to in 30 years. And suddenly I realized Tricia wasn't the only one trying to erase me. Someone from my past was helping her do it. The name on the co-signature burned through me like acid. Judith Harmon, my sister-in-law, my late husband's estranged sister, a woman I hadn't spoken to since 1995. The woman who once sued me for emotional damages because she believed I had stolen her brother away when we married young. She hadn't been at his funeral. She hadn't called when Aaron was born. And now she was signing papers to help take my house. Why? I needed proof. Not just for me, but for anyone who might help me later. I started documenting everything. I turned my crossword puzzle book into a log. Dates, times, changes. When food was brought. When locks were changed. When I was denied male visitors fresh air. I noted everything from thermostat changes to the color of pill capsules Tricia left by my bed. But it wasn't enough, so I went further. The SIM card I found inside the white noise machine, I took it to a nearby pharmacy during a quick walk alone. One of the techs there, a young woman named Leah, recognized me from the library days. I asked if she could look at the card on her lunch break. She said she would. 2 days later, she slipped a flash drive into my coat pocket during a chance meeting at the corner store. "It's worse than you think," she whispered. "They were recording everything you said in that room. And some of what they said, too. I didn't have a computer, but I had a plan." That same afternoon, while Trisha was recording an interview for a new brand deal, I walked upstairs and grabbed Aaron's laptop off the counter. I locked myself in the bathroom, played the audio files. The first one was from 2 weeks prior, Trisha's voice. "If we keep her isolated long enough, she'll start to question herself. They all do. She already forgets basic things. Aaron, she's not stupid, Trisha. But she's pliable, and we need that room for the nursery. You want a crying baby down there with the spiders? Aaron, I just don't want to hurt her. Trisha, you're not. You're helping her transition into the next chapter." I paused the recording. Transition. Such a pretty word for exile. That night, I wrote a letter. I mailed it, certified with return receipt, to Cheryl the nurse who had come earlier that week. In it, I included copies of the real estate forgery, a transcription of the audio, and a simple sentence. "If anything happens to me, this was never voluntary." But I wasn't done. I began watching Trisha's podcast episodes carefully. I'd never listened to them before. They made my stomach turn, the calm voice, the faux compassion the brand deals for wellness powders. But in episode 76, I caught something. She mentioned a partnership with Revita Property Group, thanking them for helping her navigate the elder care transition and promising a future video on conscious inheritance planning. Revita Property Group. I looked them up at the local library. They were a real estate firm that specialized in helping adult children reclaim homes from elderly parents no longer able to manage the property. And listed under recent testimonials was a blurred photo of my living room and a quote. "Working with Revita helped us prepare our family home for its next chapter gently and legally. T.H. Oregon. Trisha Armon." She'd already started the sale process. Without my knowledge. Using my house, my name, my story. Have you ever found your life story told by someone else? Repackaged, rebranded, resold, as if you were already gone? I want to hear from you. Has someone ever used your silence to rewrite your reality? Please share in the comments. Someone might be living the same horror right now and need to know they're not imagining it. That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat upright with a notepad and a flashlight, listing out my assets, accounts, contacts, everything Trisha might try to touch. And then I remembered the number Cheryl gave me. I called. She answered, quietly. "I got your letter," she said. "And I spoke to a lawyer friend of mine, someone who handles elder fraud cases. He wants to meet you. Will he believe me? He already does. You're not the first." I arranged to meet him at the senior center, posing as a bingo guest. I wore lipstick for the first time in months. The lawyer's name was Daniel. He was in his 40s, calm eyes, sharp questions. He asked to see the documents. He listened. And then he said, "This isn't just neglect. This is constructive isolation with fraudulent intent. If you can get me just one more piece, something proving financial motive, we can act." I had one lead left, Judith. I called the number on the real estate cover letter, pretended to be confirming the facts. A man answered her accountant. I asked for a copy of the disbursement plan. He said that would go directly to Ms. Harmon's authorized co-party. It split 60-40 as discussed. Split. Aaron and Judith were splitting the house proceeds. That was the motive. And now I had everything. But before I could act, Trisha knocked on the basement door. She was holding a new pill bottle. "Time for your evening calm-down dose," she said, voice syrupy. "I'll take it later." "No," she said. "Now." I looked at her, smiled. "You first." She blinked. "Excuse me?" "Take one. Just to prove how harmless they are." She hesitated. Just for a second. But it was enough. I knew then she didn't even know what she was giving me, and I wasn't going to take anything else from her ever again. But what none of them knew was that I had recorded every conversation from that week, and I was going to play it in front of the entire family. She's watching me. Even now, from that creaky basement stairwell, she's watching me like I'm the villain in a play she never auditioned for. But I didn't write this script. I inherited it. I didn't wake up one day and decide to erase my mother-in-law. It happened slowly, naturally, like water wearing down a stone. They say people become their mothers, but I swore I never would. Mine was a cautionary tale in every way. Beautiful, but bitter proud, but penniless. She spent her final years begging her children to stay, even as she guilt-tripped them into leaving. "You owe me," she used to say, "because I sacrificed. I don't want to be that woman. I want a clean life. Curated. Contained." Elaine doesn't understand curation. She collects. She clings. She stacks newspapers and ideas in corners. She still believes that grief is a badge you wear for life. Aaron says I'm harsh, but he wasn't there the day I found his mother standing in the backyard, holding a faded baby dress, whispering to it like it was alive. That was the same day she forgot the soup on the stove and filled the kitchen with smoke. He says she was just tired, but tired people don't mistake ashes for food. That's when I knew if we waited, she'd fall apart on her own. And if she did, we'd be the ones blamed for not catching her first. I'm not cruel. I'm just efficient. She raised Aaron, yes, but she never let him grow past her. She cries if he doesn't kiss her cheek. She pouts when he forgets a birthday card. She once told me I didn't understand his soul. I've lived with men like that before, men with mothers who eat their sons with kindness and call it tradition. So no, I didn't ask her permission when I changed the lights or removed her chair. I didn't ask if I could pack up her closet, because I knew what she'd say, "This is my house." But it's not. Not anymore. Aaron and I have paid every utility bill since the pandemic. I bring in more income than she ever made in her working years. I've built a podcast audience that trusts my voice. I've helped women all over the country cut ties with guilt-laden obligations. Why would I let one woman's emotional stubbornness ruin what we've built? You think I'm heartless. But have you ever been in a house where the air smells like memory, where every drawer you open holds a letter to the past? We were drowning in her grief. I cleared space. Even the supplements, even the calm-down capsules. I gave her what I take, natural compounds, nothing harmful. But now she's documenting things, hiding receipts, whispering in hallways like a woman from a Gothic novel. She's becoming paranoid. She said I was recording her, that the white noise machine was a listening device. I laughed at first, but then I saw she was serious. And I thought maybe I was right all along. Maybe she is slipping. I told Aaron it's time. We can't keep pretending this house belongs to someone who refuses to live in the present. We have a baby coming. We need stability. We need clarity. We need air. I'll be honest, I did contact Revita. I did begin the process. But only because Aaron was afraid to. He's too sentimental. He won't admit what's obvious. His mother is fading. I heard her on the phone the other day whispering to someone about legal action. I'm not worried. No judge will look at a woman with post-surgical confusion and a history of anxiety and call her reliable. And if she shows up at a lawyer's office with a crossword book and a flash drive, let her. Narrative is everything. And I control the narrative. I'll keep posting wellness episodes. I'll keep framing it as a daughter-in-law doing her best. And if I have to, I'll cry on camera. My audience loves vulnerability. I never said I was perfect. Just practical. People like Elaine don't know how to let go. They grip the past until their fingers bleed. But I'm not waiting for her to give up the house. I'm extracting us from the legacy of rot, from pity, from the constant threat of her falling and suing us, from the guilt of having a woman sob on the stairs while we try to make dinner. Some people call it elder abuse. I call it inheritance prevention. You think I'm the villain, fine. But if the roles were reversed, what would you do? Would you risk your child's future to protect someone who refuses to protect herself? Or would you act before the damage becomes permanent? Tell me in the comments. I want to know what line you would draw. Because I've drawn mine. And tomorrow, while she's at her bingo visit, I'll open the locked drawer in her old desk. I know she's hiding something. And if what I find confirms my suspicions, I'll act. Even if it means doing the one thing Aaron begged me not to. Because if she tries to stop me, I'm ready to file the medical incompetency paperwork myself. The knock on the door was soft, barely audible over the hum of the laundry machine. I thought it might be the delivery driver, or maybe Cheryl's lawyer friend returning early. But when I opened the door, I froze. It was Grace, my old neighbor. We hadn't spoken in almost a year. I was walking shadow, she said, motioning to the small dog beside her. He pulled me this way, and then I saw your lights were off. Again. She looked at me for a moment, then added, "They told us you were sleeping a lot." I stepped aside. I haven't had a full night's sleep in weeks. She entered, slowly scanning the space. Her eyes lingered on the stripped bed, the unplugged lamp, the notebook beside my cot. "I always thought you were upstairs," she said quietly. "You know, like you used to be." I said. "Then they moved me down here. Said it was safer." Her brow creased. "Safer from what?" That's when I opened the envelope. Inside were copies of the forged real estate documents, the audio transcripts, and the letter I'd written to Cheryl. I showed her the flash drive, the note from the anonymous ally, and the photo of the Revita website with my living room proudly displayed. Grace sat down, stunned. "I don't even know what to say," she whispered. "They posted on Nextdoor that you were going into assisted living voluntarily, that you wanted to be closer to a memory care program." "They said what?" "And that you gave them power of attorney." My chest tightened. I never signed anything. Grace pulled her phone from her purse. "You need to hear this," she said. "2 weeks ago, Tricia came to the HOA board meeting." I blinked. "Why?" "She said you'd asked her to speak on your behalf. She claimed you were no longer comfortable attending public gatherings. Then she voted on your property maintenance rights and passed a motion to remove your garden shed." "That shed holds my husband's tools," I said. "He built that shed with his bare hands." "I know," Grace said. "I helped him level the concrete base." She opened her voicemail app. "But here's what you really need to hear." She played a message. It was a recording. Grace had accidentally captured it on her phone after the HOA meeting ended. Tricia's voice, clear and confident. "She's not fighting it. Honestly, I think Elaine's relieved. It's like her generation doesn't know how to surrender unless we make the decisions for them. I'm not being cruel. I'm being proactive." The woman still writes checks. Then a second voice. Male, Aaron. "I just hope she doesn't find out we already cleared the shed." "I told you," Tricia said. "By the time she realizes it, she won't have anywhere to take it to." Grace hit pause. I stared at the floor heart thudding. They'd already done it. Elaine Grace said softly, "This is abuse. It's disguised in yoga and vitamins and soft voices, but it's still abuse." And then she added something I'll never forget. "If you let them do this, someone watching right now might let it happen to their own mother too." I looked at her. "Why are you helping me?" She smiled, small and tired. "Because 30 years ago, you were the only one who showed up at my front door when my husband left me. You brought soup, and you never asked questions. You just said, 'You don't deserve to feel invisible.'" I swallowed hard. She opened her purse again and handed me a folded flyer. "There's a community legal workshop at the library tomorrow night. They help with elder rights and housing fraud. I've already registered you. Won't they think it's suspicious? I've registered myself too, as your witness." There's something powerful about being believed, not pitied, not managed, but truly heard. That moment gave me more strength than any supplement Tricia had ever forced on me. Have you ever been saved by someone completely unexpected? A neighbor, a co-worker, a stranger, someone who stepped in when you were too tired to fight alone? If so, leave their first name in the comments. Let's make a list of the people who still stand up when it matters most. Grace stayed an hour. She gave me a burner phone. Use this when you're ready, she said, but only outside. I don't trust what's in this house. She left just before dusk. That night I didn't hide. I walked upstairs, took back my coat, retrieved my photo album. I even plugged in the hallway lamp and left it on as if to say, yes, I'm awake. I'm watching too. But just before bed, I heard Aaron and Trisha arguing behind their door. She's supposed to be compliant by now. Trisha hissed. What changed? Aaron didn't answer. Then I heard him say, maybe we went too far. And she replied, cold and final, she's going to ruin everything. If she shows up tomorrow night, we'll make sure she never gets a second chance. But they didn't know that Grace had recorded their entire HOA conversation, and she was bringing it with her to the legal workshop. The room was packed not with strangers, but with neighbors. I stood at the front of the community library's legal aid seminar, flanked by folding chairs, fluorescent lighting, and the slow hum of a decades-old radiator. Grace stood beside me, her voice calm but unmistakably resolute. I have a statement, she told the volunteer attorney leading the workshop. We have documentation of a potential case involving forged real estate paperwork, financial manipulation, and elder isolation under the guise of caregiving. A few heads turned, mine included. Grace had rehearsed this moment. She wasn't angry. She wasn't panicked. She was precise the way someone speaks when they know they only get one shot at being heard. Trisha and Aaron entered the room 5 minutes later, pretending surprise. Elaine Trisha said, her voice rising. What are you doing? I'm attending a public seminar, I replied. Same as you. You should have told us, Aaron added, eyes darting. We could have helped. Helped, Grace interrupted, stepping forward. Like you helped her move to a basement with no heating. Like you helped her by selling off her shed without her consent. Or maybe you mean the part where you helped submit forged paperwork, transferring her house to a third party. A silence fell. The attorney at the front of the room raised an eyebrow. We'll need to stick to the scheduled agenda, folks. Unless this is an emergency disclosure. Grace lifted a small voice recorder. This is Trisha Harmon, she said, speaking at an HOA meeting recorded 2 weeks ago. She pressed play. Trisha's voice crackled to life. She's not fighting it. Honestly, I think Elaine's relieved. They don't know how to surrender unless we make the decisions for them. Whispers filled the room. Then Grace played Aaron's voice. I just hope she doesn't find out we already cleared the shed. And finally, Trisha again. By the time she realizes it, she won't have anywhere to take it to. Someone in the back murmured, Jesus? Another woman in her 60s leaned toward her husband and whispered, That's what happened to my aunt. I stepped forward. This house, I said, was never a gift to them. It was a lifeline for my husband, for my son, for myself. I built every inch of it with sacrifice. And now, I've been told I'm no longer fit to live in it. Not by a court, not by a doctor, but by a woman who repackages cruelty as wellness. Trisha scoffed. This is ridiculous. You're making a scene. We're a family. Families don't hide microphones in bedrooms. Gasps, then murmurs. One woman raised her hand, a legal intern in the front row. Do you have documentation of forged property transfer? I nodded. And the original deed. With a side-by-side showing my digitally forged signature. The attorney requested to see it. I handed over copies. The silence in the room became a shield. I didn't feel weak anymore. I felt seen. Aaron looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. This wasn't supposed to happen like this, he mumbled. We were trying to protect you. From what I asked. Control over my own life. Trisha stepped forward. She's just trying to sabotage us because she hates that we're having a baby. She told Aaron that no one needs more mouths to feed. That's a lie, I said. She called our parenting selfish. Trisha added, voice cracking, now performative. I tried to include her. She deleted my prescriptions, replaced my medication, and rewired the house to track my movement, I said. She didn't want me included. She wanted me erased. The room was no longer neutral. I could feel the tilt the moment when public doubt slips into public conviction. It's subtle, like the shift in the air before a storm. Have you ever stood in front of people and begged them to see you, not as old, not as slow, not as weak, but simply as still human? I looked around the room. Have you ever had to prove you still deserve the right to live in your own home? If you've ever witnessed someone get isolated behind closed doors, while their abuser smiles politely in public, please share what happened in the comments. I promise you, these stories are more common than anyone wants to admit. The attorney cleared his throat. I'll be following up with both parties after tonight. In the meantime, we're recommending that Ms. Elaine Harmon have full access to independent counsel and that no medical or legal actions be taken regarding her property or person until this matter is properly reviewed. Grace squeezed my hand. I'd like to give one more statement, I said. Trisha's eyes narrowed. Aaron stared at the floor. I pulled a flash drive from my coat pocket. This contains 7 days' worth of recorded audio from my room. It includes conversations about isolating me, transferring property, and medically discrediting me. It also includes several moments where both Trisha and Aaron admit they were waiting for me to fade. The attorney asked for the drive. I handed it over. And then I looked at Trisha, not as my daughter-in-law, not as my son's wife, but as the woman who tried to undo my existence with soft voices and clinical cruelty. I hope your podcast has a live episode scheduled next, I said, because the world is about to hear the real story. But what none of us expected was that the lawyer reviewing my file would find a clause Trisha had overlooked, one that could turn everything upside down. It was Daniel, the elder law attorney Grace had introduced me to, who found it. He called me 2 days after the public workshop. His voice was calm, but there was a quiet urgency beneath every word. I reviewed the deed transfer your daughter-in-law submitted, he said, and the forged digital signature, the notary stamp. It was all designed to look airtight, but she made a mistake. I held my breath. There's a clause in your original deed, a restriction that was added when you refinanced the home in 2009 using a senior homeowner protection loan under the California Homeowners Bill of Rights, Section 2024A to be exact. Do you remember that? I remember the bank made me take a class. I didn't understand why. That clause prevents the involuntary sale transfer or reassignment of the property unless the owner is found medically incompetent by 2 independent physicians and a superior court judge. I blinked. 2 physicians? And a judge? She has neither. And Aaron's power of attorney paperwork was never notarized, it's invalid. So, he paused, then said the words that changed everything, Elaine under California elder abuse law. What they did isn't just unethical, it's potentially criminal. Elder financial abuse, constructive isolation, coercive control, all recognized by law. Daniel filed an emergency petition with the county. Within 48 hours, a hearing was scheduled, and it wasn't quiet. Trisha tried to delay it, claiming I was mentally unstable and emotionally reactive. But she walked into that courtroom with ring lights in her purse and a pre-written statement about caregivers being villainized. It didn't go the way she planned. Judge Harper was a small, sharp woman in her 60s. She had reading glasses on a silver chain and an expression like she'd heard every lie 3 times already that week. Ms. Harmon, she said, turning to Trisha, you state that Ms. Elaine Harmon is no longer mentally fit to manage her own affairs. Do you have psychological assessments from 2 independent physicians, as required by California Probate Code? State 10, Trisha blinked. We were in the process. The judge raised an eyebrow. Were you also in the process of submitting this forged deed transfer before that assessment was completed? Silence. Judge Harper held up the original deed, the one I'd kept with my actual signature. This document, she said, includes a homeowner restriction clause filed under the Elder Protection Refinance Act of 2009. Do you know what that means? Trisha stammered. Not exactly. It means, the judge continued, that no amount of family drama or wellness podcasts gives you the right to erase a legal homeowner's identity. And forging digital authorization under the pretense of elder decline is not only invalid, it's prosecutable. Aaron sunk lower in his seat. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. Daniel leaned forward. Your Honor, we're requesting full reversal of the deed, filing a restraining order under California Welfare and Institutions Code POR 1515703 and investigation of elder abuse under Penal Code POR 368. The judge looked at Tricia, and then she said the words I will never forget. You didn't try to protect her. You tried to replace her. This court won't let that happen. Gasps echoed behind me. Grace clutched my hand. Tricia's face went pale. Her voice cracked. I didn't mean to hurt her. Judge Harper didn't blink. Intentional or not, you isolated, recorded, medicated, and misrepresented a competent adult for financial gain. You may call it holistic. I call it hostile. Aaron stood up. Can I say something? The judge allowed it. He turned toward me, eyes glassy. I didn't know it would go this far. I just wanted peace in the house. I didn't know she'd try to sell it. You signed the transfer agreement, Daniel cut in. Aaron's voice faltered. She said it was symbolic, that we were just preparing for the future. You helped forge the present, I said quietly. Have you ever seen someone betray you not out of hatred, but out of cowardice? Not because they wanted to see you fall, but because they were too weak to stand beside you. I want to hear from you. In your life, has someone's silence ever hurt more than someone else's cruelty? Share it below. Someone out there needs to know they're not alone. The judge slammed the gavel once. Temporary restraining order granted. All legal and financial access to Ms. Elaine Harmon is revoked for both respondents until a full investigation is completed. All previous transfers are nullified, and Ms. Harmon is recognized as the sole legal and medical authority over her own person and property. I was whole again, not healed, not yet, but no longer erased. And as we walked out of the courtroom, Grace handed me a letter that had arrived in her mailbox by mistake from the podcast sponsor threatening to sue Tricia for fraud. 3 weeks later, I opened every window in the house. The sunlight poured in like it belonged to me because it did. I stood in the center of my living room barefoot on polished wood, the air warm and still. No more white noise machines, no detox powders, no laminated mantras taped to the fridge. Just me, the wind, and a silence I had reclaimed on my own terms. The legal case was still open. Tricia and Aaron had moved out the same day the restraining order was issued. They left behind nothing but a broken yoga mat and a box of expired vitamins labeled "For Elaine Mental Clarity." I threw them out with the trash. That morning, I received an email from the podcast company that once sponsored Tricia. They had launched a formal investigation into her brand after discovering multiple clients had complained about her pushing detox compliance in households with vulnerable elders. Apparently, my story wasn't so rare after all. But this isn't about revenge. This is about restoration. I had the locks changed, the garden replanted, the shed rebuilt with the help of Grace and 2 neighbors I hadn't spoken to in years. We painted it soft green, and I added a plaque in memory of what's still worth growing. And then I did something no one expected. I hosted a party. Not a grand dramatic affair, just a backyard gathering. I cooked everything myself: rosemary potatoes, lemon bread, sweet tea in mason jars. Grace brought peach cobbler. The neighbors' kids brought folding chairs. And I brought myself fully, finally, unapologetically. I wore a yellow dress my husband had once called sunshine bottled up. I played the piano again. At one point I stood and raised a glass. I want to thank everyone here for reminding me of something simple, I said. That being loved doesn't always look like protection. Sometimes it looks like presence. Like someone showing up. Like someone believing you when you haven't even spoken yet. A few people cried. A few smiled in silence. But what I remember most is this: for the first time in months, no one looked at me with pity. They looked at me with respect. Not because I fought back, but because I stood up. Have you ever seen someone go from forgotten to formidable? From being silenced to becoming the loudest voice in the room, not by shouting, but by standing tall? If so, share their story in the comments. Let's remind the world that power doesn't always come in anger. Sometimes it comes in quiet refusal. A few days later, I received a letter from a community college nearby. Grace had shared my story with them. They asked if I'd be interested in speaking at their seminar on modern elder law and family boundaries. They even offered to let me teach a short course. I laughed when I read it, not because I didn't believe I could, but because it had never occurred to me that survival might qualify you to teach others how to survive too. I accepted. I now run a weekly support circle at the local library called Still Here. It's open to anyone mother-in-laws, father-in-laws, adult children, caregivers, estranged siblings. We don't point fingers. We listen. We document. We help each other find the quiet parts of ourselves that never stopped fighting even when no one else saw them. At the first meeting, I told them they tried to reduce me to a burden, but all they did was remind me I was never meant to be carried. I was meant to stand. And I still do. If you've made it to the end of this story, and you believe that being seen, being safe, and being respected should never depend on age, then you belong here. There are more stories like this. Real ones, unspoken ones. If you want to hear them, feel them, maybe even help tell them, don't forget to subscribe. We're just getting started.